Calyrex Shadow Rider. And if Emilio decides to lead possibly the Calyrex plus that Thunderous, he's going to be able to keep the speed control in his favor as well. So a very tough matchup. I think Wolfe is going to be forced to reveal some of the other modes on his team in order to be successful here. Could be an interesting opportunity for that Charizard to make an appearance, to make it easier to break any potential focus sashes, to also have some airstream access of his own. But these players are already locked in, and looks like we're going to have a very tough battle start to play out. So I hope you're ready, Rose. This is going to be quite the adventure.
Well, we've had quite the adventure already in our top cut, but let's check out this first top 4 match between Wolfe, Glick, and Emilio Forbes. Wolfe bringing the Lunala and the Regieleki, and Emilio bringing the Zacian and the Thunderous. I love the Regieleki here.
It's such a fantastic Pokemon for this matchup. You know, it's very fast, it's very powerful, can outspeed that Calyrex Shadow Rider, and a lot of Regieleki right now are running Electro Web, which will drop the speed of the Thunderous and the Zacian on Emilio's side of the field. The one thing that Wolfe has to keep an eye out for is that Thunderous does have the Defiant ability. We also saw, you know, just how much damage it's capable of doing in the top 8 match with Emilio. If you activate Defiant and that +2 attack boost sticks, that's just going to be so much damage. Going to be very easy to knock out that Regieleki, very easy to knock out the Lunala as well.
We're gonna start everything off here in this game number 1 of this set with a Dynamax, and it's gonna be that Regieleki. Obviously, you could go for some speed control here. Regieleki oftentimes gets access to Electro Web, but that is very dangerous. That Defiant ability on that Thunderous does make that a very scary option. But Thunderous just goes for a Protect. Doesn't want to take any of that super effective damage from that Regieleki, but it's a max Airstream. That's interesting. That's a physical Regieleki here going into that Zacian.
Something to keep an eye on for sure. It's a bit of a newer adaptation. You know, I think in previous formats, Regieleki has run those physical attacks, but the first time we're seeing a Airstream in this tournament, and a follow-up Moongeist Beam into that Zacian is going to deal a nice amount of damage.
Yeah, the Behemoth Blade though, as a return attack coming in from Emilio Zacian, will be able to break. The Shadow Shield does a decent amount of damage to the Lunala as well, but now you can see that that +1 speed boost from that max Airstream played a pretty big role here to allow that Lunala to be quite speedy.
Faster than the Zacian means it's also faster than that Thunderous, and you know it must be tempting for Wolfe to click Meteor Beam into that Pokemon. It's going to be super effective, and with a little extra chip damage from that Regieleki should be enough to guarantee the knockout even through a Dynamax. So Emilio has to be very careful this turn. Already used Protect, as a result going to be forced to switch out that Thunderous if he wants to keep it safe for a later game Dynamax, possibly after this Regieleki has used up its 3 turns.
Well, this Incineroar makes a good switch in, gets the Intimidate drop onto this Regieleki. It's going to really help to try to mitigate some of the damage that is coming out from that Pokemon, but a Max Lightning right into the Zacian. He's usually enough to get the cleanup, but it's not this time around, because that Intimidate drop allows this Zacian to hang on. It does set up the electric terrain, so Regieleki in future turns will be able to do quite a bit here, but Meteor Beam now, that's what it's time for this Lunala.
If it connects with the Zacian, that'll guarantee the knockout. If it connects with the Incineroar, it's going to do a lot of damage.
Well,
the targeting here is key.
Yeah, let's see where this goes. Meteor Beam does connect onto the Incineroar
that's
here.
That's a knockout.
That is going to be a one-hit knockout. Incineroar goes down just as quickly as it entered onto the field. But Zacian gets to follow up with a Behemoth Blade, and that going into the Lunala will certainly get the pickup here.
Emilio with a good choice of targeting, even though the Regieleki is Dynamaxed and is a big threat you have to worry about. That Lunala just had so much more damage potential for that turn. And even though you lose the Incineroar, I think you can make the assumption that, you know, like you said, we saw the max Airstream, this Regieleki most likely physical, so that Intimidate going to stick around for at least this last turn of Dynamax. Yes, you do have to worry about this Groudon. Yes, you do have to, make sure that those Precipice Blades aren't going to hurt too much. But I think Incineroar did its job. The fact that Zacian can hold on for that last attack as well to knock out the Lunala was absolutely key for Emilio and really gives him the opportunity to play through the remainder of this match. Hypothetically speaking, if that last Pokemon is going to be the Calyrex Shadow Rider and he's able to double into the Regieleki for a knockout this turn, that could be a way around this.
It's not the Calyrex though. Here's the Rillaboom. That's the fourth and final Pokemon here for Emilio. Setting up the grassy terrain, so taking that extra bit of damage away from this Regieleki in case it was going to go for a Max Lightning. But it's time for Emilio to go on the offensive. That Thundurus is going to be Dynamaxing.
That Rillaboom as well going to offer some priority attack. So if this Thundurus is able to put the Groudon or the Regieleki within Grassy Glide knockout range, that was a great switch for Emilio. Just has to be sure he didn't get caught by a Max Airstream on the switch.
Oh, that Max Airstream going right into the Rillaboom. It's gonna do a nice chunk of damage as that Rillaboom does enter the field. But more importantly, Regieleki gets a nice boost to its speed once again, but it's about that Groudon, because now that Groudon can go for a Sword Stance here pretty free. What did that Thundurus do though?
It's a tough call. I think you match the Max Airstreams at this point. Groudon.
Oh my goodness.
Taking so much damage. It's a critical hit. There's also, I believe, a Life Orb on this Thundurus that we saw earlier in top 8, and you can see why. Groudon forced to protect this turn as Regieleki needs to find a way to remove that Rillaboom from the field. Otherwise, Wolfe forced to switch out the Groudon and give up those attack boosts.
Well, this is a tough position for Wolfe to be in, because if you want to be able to drop the speed, maybe you go for something like an Electro Web. But Thundurus would get a Defiant boost. And then, if you do protect the Groudon, you won't survive anyway.
Exactly. It's a great position for Emilio to be in. Even though he got caught by the Max Airstream, the Intimidate made sure the Rillaboom was able to hold on very comfortably and pick up the knockout easily on this Groudon to give him the advantage in this game 1.
There it is. Wolfie down to his final 2 Pokemon, but the Electro Web is going to go through anyway. So you do get a chance to drop this speed, and maybe that means that Wolfie has a game plan in the back for being able to deal with this Thundurus despite that Defiant boost. But Max Airstream is going to return fire onto this Regieleki and knock it out.
And that's why you run Defiant Thundurus. It's such a scary Pokemon. The fact that Emilio has found the opportunity to give it a Life Orb as well, I think really sets it apart from some other teams. A lot of times when you see a person run Thundurus and Calyrex Shadow Rider, it's a bulkier variant. It has that Assault Vest. It's meant to sit on the field, take a bunch of hits. In this case, though, Life Orb plus a Defiant boost from the Electro Web, and now another boost from the Intimidate. This Thundurus is at +3. There is no way this poor Incineroar is going to be able to take another Airstream from this Pokemon.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you can't even fake out at this point, because Thundurus is just going to go ahead and one-hit knock out your Incineroar anyway. So good time for Wolfie to think about adjustments going into this game number 2. But let's go ahead and see the conclusion as the Max Airstream goes right into the Incineroar. It's a knockout, and Emilio takes game number 1 of our top 4 match.
Emilio very comfortably taking this game. I think the way that he waited for the Dynamax to be essentially expired on Wolfe's side of the team before he sent in the Thundurus, he kept it safe. He made that switch in turn 1 so that it could come back out on the field and it could really dominate at that point in time. This is the threat of Thundurus. You cannot send in your Incineroar maybe when you need the opportunity to use fake outs and you need that opportunity to slow things down, because as soon as you do, it's going to take an attack boost, and again, with the Life Orb, just deals so much more damage. Going into game 2, I think Wolfe had the right idea. Regieleki is a great way to support the Lunala, just unfortunately was not able to find the damage that it needed, possibly because of that Intimidate. So going into this game too, I think if you're Wolfe, you have to be looking at some of the other ways you can handle speed control on your side of the field. We saw Groudon go for a sword stance, did not attack really after that. Maybe you just go for a Rock Tomb next time. Just try and find those openings where you can and just, you know, keep control of the board to the best of your ability.
I think what made it very difficult for Wolfe in that game number 1 was that it could have been a roll onto the Zacian. We did see the critical survival at 3 HP after the Intimidate drop onto the Regieleki. So maybe it was just a damage roll. Maybe that Zacian could have gone down in that situation despite the Intimidate drop, and that could have changed the game.
It could have, and it probably would have, but if you think about it, the way that the Zacian was still available in the back of Emilio's party at the end of that game 1, it's a toss-up, right? Because you would still end up in a situation where the Thundurus would come out onto the field, it would still be able to Dynamax, and it would still be able to capitalize off the amount of damage pressure that it faces. I think Wolfe needs to find a way to just connect a few more attacks into that Thundurus and maybe not power it up so much. It's hard though, like, because if you look at this matchup, if Emilio had brought the Calyrex Shadow Rider, you need to have those speed drops as a form of your speed control. And if you don't bring those, then Calyrex Shadow Rider just runs through things. It's a very tough matchup. I think that you definitely have to keep the speed control in mind. I think that you have to maybe try and anticipate some of the switches that Emilio made to keep that Thundurus safe and try and, you know, maybe punish those switches a bit harder. But it's a very tough call. I think knowing, though, that the Regieleki, like just seeing how much that Intimidate hurt it in game 1, probably means you don't go for that Dynamax right away. Maybe you just stick to the Electro Web right off the bat and just accept the fact, you know, this is how I get around this. But if I can connect this Meteor Beam there this time around, maybe it'll be a little bit more favorable for me.
Well, let's find out. We're entering into game number 2 of this top 4 match between Emilio and Wolfe, where Wolfe is leading with the Lunala and the Regieleki, but a big adjustment coming in from Emilio, running that Calyrex Shadow Rider next to that Thundurus.
Definitely a ton of confidence in this lead as the Calyrex Shadow Rider out on the field, able to land and attack into this Lunala, break the Shadow Shield quite easily, and then have that Thundurus follow up for a knockout. So Wolfe has to be very careful here. Electro Web will give Regieleki and this Lunala the speed advantage, but then you also activate the Defiant boost on that Thundurus. I think the big question that we have to be asking ourselves is how much will a +1 Meteor Beam do to this Thundurus? Will it be enough for that knockout, or will Wolfe be possibly forced to Dynamax the Lunala, go for max Rockfall, and just forego the special attack boost altogether? But it's Regieleki Dynamaxing once again, possibly hoping that these Airstreams will be a little bit more potent now that there's no Intimidate down yet.
Well, it's a physical Regieleki as well. Most of the time they're running a max darkness. That could be a very big deal if we do see the Shadow Rider Calyrex on the receiving end of that. But Thundurus is going to protect, so Emilio playing it just a little bit safe. But it's a max Airstream, so just trying to boost up the speed of this Lunala as that max Airstream goes into the Thundurus protect.
Will do a little bit of damage, but I think Wolfe was hoping to maybe land that on a Dynamax, as it is the Meteor Beam. Now we do have to wait a moment while Lunala charges up to get confirmation of the target, but if Wolfe doubled into the Thundurus here and Emilio was able to call that and go for an Astral Barrage, that is such a strong start for Emilio in this game too.
Yeah, but at least we know from how those speeds interacted that Lunala is in fact faster than that Shadow Rider Calyrex. So Lunala did at least get the charge up with that special attack boost, but I think the big thing now is where does Wolfie go from here against Emilio's Pokemon?
Well, as long as you get enough damage on this Calyrex to break a potential Focus Sash, you can just follow it up with an attack from this Groudon, assuming it doesn't get too many special attack boosts while we're here. You called out the possibility of a Max Darkness. Something like a Max Darkness into that Calyrex, followed up by a Moongeist Beam into the Thundurus could secure a knockout, but that would be assuming that Emilio doesn't Dynamax. If Emilio Dynamaxes, even with that special defense drop from the Max Darkness, it's possible that this Thundurus would be able to take that attack, and it looks like that's exactly what Emilio is going for here. So let's see how these Pokemon are trained.
let's see indeed. Thunderous gonna go ahead and get that Dynamax factor. And what the follow-up looks like in this next turn is going to be pretty big. So we will have the Regieleki moving first. Big Max Lightning, so you do get the same type attack bonus as well as that Transistor ability. But now, hey, the electric terrain is also going to be active on the field. But Lunala gets a chance to move yet again. So Moongeist Beam coming out from the Lunala to follow up that Max Lightning. And it's going right into the Shadow Rider Calyrex. That's going to be a knockout.
No Grimnay boost in this matchup, which is great for Wolfe, but you still have to contend with this Thundurus, who does pick up that KO on the Lunala. So I think a bit of a safer play here from Emilio. You know, just trying to get that speed boost to match the speed boost that this Regieleki is bringing into this game, going for the knockout on the Lunala just to remove it from the field, and most likely forcing the Groudon out from the back of Wolfie's party, as you do not want to send your Incineroar into this position where Thundurus is already Dynamax and going to be going for big damage. We see the Rillaboom once again revealed for Emilio, going to bring the grassy terrain to get rid of the electric terrain, just like in game one. And I think most importantly, putting this Groudon within range of a knockout again from a double up. The grassy glide plus a max airstream would be more than enough damage to pick up that knockout. So something that Wolfe has to be very careful about here. In game one, we saw him go for a sword stance, didn't quite pay off. His other options aren't looking that great either, though. You can protect and stall for a turn and hope that without the Intimidate, that max airstream does more damage to the Rillaboom, but let's be real, it just didn't do that much after the Intimidate. I think it's going to fall short of a knockout without it, at which point you're still in the same spot in the following turn.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a tricky situation to see where this damage can go and how it's actually going to work. But Groudon at least is on the field. Maybe it'll be able to go for some good damage, but instead does play it safe. I like this play just because it is going to be a bit more patient, but the Grassy Glide goes into the Regieleki, bringing it pretty low, but a fire back of that Max Lightning right into the Thundurus. Still,
it does a lot.
It does a lot, but it's still not quite enough. But you do at least get a chance to change the terrain. But Thundurus still has yet to move. The Max Airstream now going into the Regieleki to pick up the knockout.
Emilio predicting the protect on that Groudon and very carefully removing that Regieleki from the field, giving themselves a speed boost as well in case Regieleki went for the Max Airstream against that Rillaboom. Even though the grassy terrain is gone, thanks to that speed boost, it's highly possible that this Rillaboom is going to outspeed anyway. Wolfe has one turn of Fake Out available to him, but you do have to be careful as Thundurus is sitting here now with +1 attack and is just ready to go. It is so fast. It got the attack boost it was looking for, and it still has the Dynamax protection, so it cannot be flinched. One option Wolfe has, Fake Out into the Rillaboom, try and Rock Tomb the Thundurus and hope it can pick up that KO, but even if you make that play, you're still going to be taking an attack first. And this attack from this Thundurus is going to deal so much damage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with that, I mean, trying to get the double protect there, definitely need to, but Thundurus is going to go for the Max Lightning, and Incineroar doesn't even get a chance to move. A sharp attack boost absolutely paying off dividends here. And so that's it. Wolfie's down to his final Pokemon. Dynamax is over, but Emilio is still up 2 Pokemon over this Groudon.
I mean, the nice thing is that Thundurus can't rely on its presumably fly at this point in time to deal damage immediately, so Wolfe will have a turn to try and do something, but unfortunately, as soon as that fly connects with that Groudon, if this Behemoth Blade doesn't pick up the knockout, it certainly will. Emilio just playing through this matchup with such confidence, knowing
wait. Okay, it was just the Thundurus for a second. I was like, hold on a sec. The Precipice Blades does connect onto the Zacian, but it's this follow-up turn. Thundurus is in the air with Fly at the ready, and regardless of if Fly picks up the knockout or not, Zacian will be able to follow up with an attack, but Thundurus does it. Emilio taking our top 4 match in a 2-0 over Wolfe Glick.
A very fast 2-0. I mean, when I was sitting down to prepare for this matchup, I was expecting it to be really